Warning. This program contains coarse humor and a sense of language that some people might not share. Viewer discretion is advised.
One may think it's strange. That's exactly how it seemed to be. But eventually we reached the district center. I eventually got tired in the bus and fell asleep. When I woke up, I ran down the aisle of the bus, gasping for air, but soon realized that this long week is over. At last, I managed to break free from the camp. All the time I spent there seemed like it was much longer than 7 days, and now everything is over. Soon after that, events moved with frightening speed. No time left for self-analysis or seeking answers. Moreover, from time to time, I completely forgot about the camp. Like anyone who found themselves in a completely strange environment, I was completely lost. I had no papers, not even a simple birth certificate, and no skills to earn a living. My professions, such as computer specialist or call center operator, were not in demand. Lena returned to her normal life. She had to graduate from school and get ready for entering university. The pioneer camp was in the south of the USSR, just as I'd imagined. Lena lived in a town with a population of about 100,000. It was easy to get there by bus from the district center. There was nothing special about the town. One big factory, rows of 5-story houses, wooden huts on the outskirts, a grocery store that closed at 7 p.m. and a supermarket, a true Eden for a shopaholic, with choices including rubber winter shoes, women's sheepskin coats, and men's musquash hats. Before I would already be trying to run away from a place like this, but now it was my home. Cases of starvation were rare in the 20th century Europe. I managed to find a job. I was employed as a turner's assistant in a factory and was also given a room in a hostel. Now, when he says turner, I'm assuming that means he works on a lathe? Over time, this initially difficult and strange job started to bring certain satisfaction. Of course, partially of course, that came from having the ability to buy food. Time passed and I climbed the career ladder, becoming the head of a whole shift. My colleagues were amazed at my talent and persistence, and so was I. Lena graduated from school and spent several nights with a calculator designing diagrams of expenses and income, and at last made up my mind to propose to Lena. I don't remember now if it took a lot of time for her to think, if she suggested we sign a marriage contract, or if she protested because of the lack of a dowry, but in short time both of us moved into a communal apartment room near the factory that cost 2/3 of my salary. Thanks to free Soviet technology for everyone. Thanks to free Soviet education for everyone, or maybe thanks to my wife's persistence, eventually I became a part-time student at the local Polytechnic University. At first I protested, saying that a fair proletarian had no need to act like the lousy intellectuals, but then I came to a conclusion that a diploma would make my life easier. It wasn't difficult to study thanks to my knowledge from my last attempt at receiving higher education. Time passed and the country started to change. Of course, I knew it would happen, but still, the changes came out of the blue. You could not compare it to being caught in an avalanche in the mountains. You can prepare for all you like, but you still get buried anyway. The factory was privatized and then closed down. Moonlighting as a private driver in a Kopeka rattletrap I inherited from my father-in-law was not really a profitable business. I was even ready to apply for a camp leader position in Savionok when Lena's distant relative died and left us a one-room apartment somewhere in central Russia. After a family council, we decided to move. We we greeted the early 90s in a cramped kitchen in a Khrushchevka, watching Swan Lake. Thanks to random side jobs, I saved up some money and we decided to move to a bigger city, and of course, I chose my birthplace. We decided to sell the flat and use the money to invest in businesses. For some time, we lived in luxury, buying mink fur coats and expensive foreign cars, dining in restaurants, and taking trips to other countries. Like many others during that time, I had luck to somehow make it big, starting from the bottom. My business was construction material retail. It was a profitable market at the time because people made excessive money that they wanted to live in and invest in luxurious homes. Maybe such life could have gone on, but the 90s were called rakish for a reason. After encountering rackets and corruption, I was left with an empty refrigerator and an empty wallet, and the bitter taste of blood in my mouth. That was the time I tried to recall my man from the future status. Betting places that were impossible in the Soviet era popped up all over, and I rushed to gamble on everything I knew. However, I faced new disappointment as matches were won by completely different teams. Even the 1994 World Cup champion wasn't Brazil. When I was just watching football on TV, everything went as it should, but whenever I spent the last of my money to make a bet between underdogs, began phenomenally beating favorites. As well as that, I tried to pursue a career of political advisor. However, you don't get accepted into a high position like that without special connections, or anything that would make people interested. I don't know how long I would have gone through this torment if not for an event that changed everything. Me and Lena had a child. In a hurry, I started to search for any possible way to earn enough to provide for my family. I remembered some of my father's old friends, and through them, by pretending to be a distant relative of myself, I gained a place as a junior data analyst in a bank. At the same time, I made a new attempt to obtain my degree, or to be precise, to finish it. Time passed slowly. The money was just enough to fill our stomachs. I almost lived at work for days, trying to find some time for my exams. Lena stayed at home and with the baby. That was when I first started writing. I remember as if it was yesterday. It was just after midnight, and I started writing in the kitchen in front of my old worn-out i386, wildly killing monsters in Doom 2. I wanted to sleep badly, but computer games at least slightly distracted me from the infinity of dull days. When I completed another level, I was suddenly immersed in thoughts about everything I'd gone through during the past few years. It was all too much for one person. That's when I decided to write down everything that had happened to me. I launched the word processor and wrote down about 200 words with the clear intent of continuing it tomorrow. However, I didn't remember it tomorrow, nor even a week later. About a month later, Lena, who was typing something on the computer, reminded me of my unfinished book. I reread it and deleted it, terrified. At that moment, I started to doubt if I could ever do it. After all, it was an entire epic novel, and I wasn't even able to string 2 sentences together. In addition, it's not easy to write about yourself. Creative work put on the back burner for now. I celebrated the year 2000 as a certified specialist with the department head duties. While moving to another apartment, I found my old i386 among the trash, and that was to be thrown away, and I remembered my intention of writing a book about my life. I laughed. How stupid. However, after some time, I opened my laptop and made a short draft of a short story about a young man without a definite occupation or aspirations who finds himself on a different planet. The style, orthography, and punctuation, as well as the idea itself, were matched pretty well to such a silly plot. I showed the story to my wife. She laughed, but said that it was well written and advised me to continue. About a year later, the drawer designed for holding my literary works was full. I found it very odd because I was spending entire days at work, sometimes even during holidays, and I tried to spend all my available free time with my family. However, that's what happened. Around that time, I decided to publish my short stories. As with any other beginner's work, most of mine were rejected, but a couple of them were accepted, including my first work. I was over the moon. Of course, I was paid nothing, but my works will be read, meaning that someone will find them interesting. Time passed. We had a second baby. During my spare time, I slowly wrote a novel. No, not about my life, or about Pioneer Camp. I decided not to touch upon those themes ever again. Everything that happened years ago seemed to be the will of God, whose charity should not be tempted. Who can tell what would have happened if I hadn't woken up in a bus near Savinok camp gates? A year later, the novel was completed. After I'd annoyed almost all known publishers, I managed to reach an agreement with a small company. The editor, an elderly man wearing raggedy tweed jacket and thick spectacles, which almost rubbed against his magnificent grey mustache, told me, "Your level is average, young man. Average, yes. But the idea itself is interesting. Interesting, yes. Well, you need more practice and more reading, yes." I remember those words for the rest of my life. I dispensed the copies that were sent to me as part of my royalty agreement among my friends and colleagues. Lena, who read my novel only after it was published, told me that she really liked it, mostly out of desire to not upset me, I guess. Time passed. The calendar days were unstoppably approaching, and that day when I was pulled out of my usual world and thrown into this life, starting from the mysterious pioneer camp and now ending up here. Now I am a successful writer, at least according to the number of copies of the books that I've sold. I have a wonderful wife and 2 children. My life has turned 180 degrees. Midnight tonight is the start of something new. Tomorrow is the day that I was awaiting for so many years.
What are you thinking about?
I opened my eyes and saw Lena. She put a cup of tea on the table near an armchair. Firewood was gently crackling in the fireplace, and a snowstorm was roaring outside. I wrapped myself up in a plaid blanket and looked at Lena. "Do you know what day it is?"
No, what day?
You remember what I told you back there in the camp?
No.
No wonder, during all these years I'd never brought up the topic of my mysterious arrival in this world. Do you remember how I told you that I'm not from this world? Lena paused.
Well, something like that, yes.
So, today is the day when, many years ago, I got on the 410 bus and woke up at that pioneer camp.
So, it's an anniversary?
Lena smiled. Yeah, sort of.
Is it a sad celebration for you?
No, not at all.
And I remember almost nothing about that time.
Maybe that's for the best. I added some firewood to the fire and took the mug from the table. Maybe I'll write a novel. You'll read it and remember.
Do you think that's a good idea?
Lena's expression became serious. Indeed, I once promised myself that I would never write about it. Maybe it's not. After all, everything that happened is just for us.
That's exactly what I think.
I sighed and looked at the fire. You know, life is like a candle. Someone's got a short one, someone's got a long one, and it can burn out at any moment.
Then our life is like this fireplace.
Yeah, perhaps. I looked at her and smiled. I'll sleep for a while longer. Lena kissed me and fixed her gaze on the fire in a dreamy manner. My eyes closed and my whole reality compressed itself down to the crackling of the firewood. I started falling slowly, somewhere far away. No, it was not a dream, more like warm ether, gently enveloping my entire existence. Every story has its beginning and its end. Every story has its own outline, synopsis, contents, key points, a prologue, and an epilogue. And there is no book which, if you read it again, would not reveal new details you didn't notice before. Every story has its beginning and its end. Almost every. Oh, that was so good. I so love this game, man. Oh, man. Man, that's a lot of people who worked on this, eh? The main man, 7he404guy. That guy, oof. He is a very good musician. I mean, the music track for this game really ties it together. It's freaking good, man. Holy crap. Anyway, this game, I give it 10 out of 10. And there's more endings than just that one. I highly recommend, if you like this playthrough, or even if you didn't, get a copy of this game, play through it. You'll find stuff that you didn't see the first time. You'll go through the different endings, and it's just, oh my god. Seriously. 100% recommend this game. This is, this is my absolute favorite VN. 100%. 100%. Like, I can't even... Oh, man. It's so well put together. You wouldn't expect something like this to have a very big impact on a person, but I really felt a connection to this game. I really think it's something that I would recommend anyone to play. They were working on another game, the same developer. They were working on Love, Money, Rock and Roll. Unfortunately, that project appears to have stalled. So if you want to check it out, links in the description. Go ahead, check it out. Maybe look at encouraging them, because their project is a little bit stalled. I really want to see that game realized, because if it's anything as good as this one, then we'd all be in for a big treat if that were released. I'm the 404 guy, 7he404guy. This is Everlasting Summer, my favorite, 100% favorite VN of all time. That was really enjoyable for me to read through. I'm glad that, anyone who watched this, thank you for joining me on the journey. I'm the 404 guy, 7he404guy. Yeah. Lena is best girl, 100%. Oh, that was so cute. That was so cute. I can't. Yeah. Anyway, I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye. Hello, hello. I'm that shiny face.